Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to look at Antarctica's lost world, dinosaurs in a green paradise. When you close your eyes and picture Antarctica, what do you see? Probably heaps of ice, maybe a few penguins scattered about. And if you imagine even more, likely just more ice. After all, the continent holds 90% of Earth's glacier ice, kilometers thick in places. Too many Antarctica's always been this frozen desert and always will be, but that's completely wrong. Long ago, it wasn't just less icy, it was a vibrant green world brimming with strange creatures and a heartbreaking end, a true lost world. Antarctica today stands alone, the oddball of the 7 continents, sharing no borders. But back then, it was a team player, nestled close to South America and Australia, even joined by land bridges. For millions of years, it was a corridor for life, including dinosaurs. Researchers found sauropod skulls, nearly identical on all 3 continents, showing dinos wandered through. Some even made Antarctica home, far from its icy image. Why? The Mesozoic was warm, with a northern latitude and hotter global temps, averaging 12 degrees Celsius, 53 degrees Fahrenheit, warmer than modern Germany. Instead of a few hardy animals, it hosted theropods, ankylosaurs, hadrosaurs, and sauropods. Sharks and marine reptiles thronged its waters. Lush rainforests, conifers, ferns, angiosperms, ginkgos covered the land. You'd never know this was Antarctica. But then crash. The dinosaur-killing asteroid struck 66 million years ago.
Almost.
A monstrous tsunami smashed its shores. Searing air roasted anything in the open, and wildfires ravaged forests. Like the rest of Earth, Antarctica got its face smashed. Dust, sulfur, and debris choked the skies, blocking the sun and freezing the continent over. Plants died, herbivores starved, and carnivores followed. Most assume Antarctica stayed a frozen ruin, right? WRONG. It staged a comeback wilder than ever. In the Cenozoic, a super greenhouse turned things around. Carbon dioxide from who knows where flooded the atmosphere, ramping up the heat. During the Eocene thermal maximum, Antarctica reached 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, like modern Kenya. This wasn't just a revival, it was a tropical wonderland surpassing the Mesozoic, minus the flames. What lived in this reborn paradise? Enter the weird wonders of the Antarctic Cenozoic. First, the mammals. Because Antarctica was so remote, its creatures evolved in splendid isolation. Take the Antarctic mini-vertebra, a small proto-wombat that couldn't actually burrow, but instead ambushed termites and ants. Then the megafauna. No predators roamed these plains, so mammals flourished, like the giant malamula, a furry whale monster, or the aptly named beast of burden, a chunky rhino-like thing. Then the birds, thousands of species strong, descended from ancestors that flew over from New Zealand and Australia, where they still live today. These included the New Zealand storm petrel, the rockhopper penguin, and the mighty elephant bird, a terror of the skies at 3 meters tall. It had a wingspan of 6 meters, like a condor. Finally, the reptiles, mostly marine, like today, with turtles, snakes, lizards, and even crocodiles, thriving. On land, though, they took a hit. Sure, some species endured, like the tuatara, but dinosaurs once dominated. Now only a handful of lizards remained. Despite this, the fossil record shows life was diverse and abundant, perhaps the greatest comeback in Earth's history. How did this Eden last so long? Well, the greenhouse world began to melt by 40 million years ago. Antarctica was just too damn warm. Rain hammered the west, snow piled on the east, and glaciers formed, expanding until, bam, the ice sheet we know today. The survivors retreated, most species going extinct.
Ow.
Today, only the hardiest creatures remain, like the penguins, seals, whales, and us humans, charting up the place with research stations. But Antarctica's past reveals that beneath the ice lies a powerful engine of evolution, producing bizarre beasts that once ruled an extraordinary world. Imagine stumbling upon this scene in Antarctica today. You'd assume you'd gone back in time. Towering swamp cypresses, broad-leaved palms, and water lilies carpeting the landscape. No icy plains or glaciers, not a penguin or seal in sight. The air is thick with the buzz of insects. You're now in Antarctica's lost world. Welcome to the Green Continent. When the supercontinent Pangaea split up during the Mesozoic, Antarctica remained attached to the supercontinent, which we call the Americas. While most creatures on the rest of Antarctica were evolving into flightless penguin seals and other marine animals, this landmass saw almost no change throughout the Paleogene period from 66 to 23 million years ago, at least not until after the formation of the southern polar climate. In other words, there was hardly any change at all. This area was largely isolated, and its climate was mild, even tropical at times. It became a refuge for creatures that couldn't hack it elsewhere. To start, it kept most of its native forest and diverse animal life, but it also became home to new arrivals. Around 65 million years ago, when the continents rearranged themselves, Antarctica briefly had a land connection with South America, and through this connection came a small army of mammalian invaders. Here they encountered a weird assortment of endemic creatures, including semi-aquatic proto-wombats, tiny proto-pandas, and yes, even a relative of the elephant shrew. But none of these were quite as terrifying as the stars of our video. Well, terror birds, the name says it all. The ancestors of these raptors were white-throated ground tyrants that flew over from South America sometime before 65 million years ago. But unlike their avian relatives, they never took to the skies again. This may have been an adaptation to conserve body heat in the cold. But don't think for a second that they became flightless doves. These birds evolved into killing machines. Some species developed massive curved beaks that could rip apart nearly any living thing. Others grew legs so powerful that they could kick a human skull like a soccer ball. And some even sported sickle claws that would put a Utah raptor to shame. We know that at least one species of terror bird arrived in Antarctica before 55 million years ago. Evidence suggests they survived until 40 million years ago. But unlike their ancestors, which stuck to South America, these birds spread out across the continent, where forests and grasslands teemed with potential prey. Sure, they had to contend with not one but two species of monstrous mammal, which we'll introduce you to in a minute. But the terror birds weren't slow, hitting 31 miles per hour in short bursts, so they could chase down pretty much anything that moved, including us. So you'd need more than running speed to survive in this strange world. Our best chance would be hiding among the lush foliage, assuming we could avoid being crushed by some colossal herbivore first. As we creep through the underbrush, we might catch glimpses of strange beasts. Every so often, a large mammal emerges from the trees, a furry giant with a neck like a giraffe and a head like a rhino. It's an astropathier, and while it looks like a monster, it's actually a herbivore. These mammals arrived in Antarctica around 65 million years ago and remained until the end of the Eocene. The only other land critters to achieve this longevity were the terror birds. Like their fearsome neighbors, astropathiers were perfectly suited for life in this world. Their bizarre teeth enabled them to gobble up tough vegetation that no other herbivore could digest. That includes the plants growing near volcanic vents, which spewed toxic gases and made the soil basically inedible. Not only were they unique looking, they were also surprisingly huge. At least 3 species made it to Antarctica, with the tallest reaching 3 meters, 10 feet, and 1.5 tons. We don't know exactly how big they got because they haven't been fully excavated yet. But based on their partial skeletons, paleontologists estimate that they were about the size of a walrus. Imagine trying to hide from something that big and hungry. But astropathiers weren't the only giants lurking in the forests. No, the title of Antarctica's largest land creature belongs to the Notolophos, a type of South American ungulate called a litopern. Like the astropathiers, they arrived in the Paleocene epoch and stuck around for tens of millions of years, though their reign lasted a little longer since their fossils had been dated as young as 23 million years. That makes them the last of the great Antarctic giants, which brings us back to that La Plata Formation. Some researchers believe the mammals of Seymour Island didn't live at the same time. Instead, they coexisted in Antarctica for a few million years between the Paleocene and Eocene. If true, that means a walking palm tree, a terrifying bird, and a bulky rhino-like mammal shared the forests of Antarctica for a brief moment in history. Unfortunately, there's no fossil evidence of this odd ménage à trois. So it is hard to say if our hypothetical survivor would encounter all 3 beasts on their lonely trek through the jungle. But one thing's for sure, surviving Antarctica's lost world would have been far more terrifying than you ever imagined. How would you like your world? Hot, steamy, full of insects and dinosaurs? You'd love Antarctica during the Paleogene. But how did this frozen desert become a bug-filled wonderland? During the Paleogene, Antarctica's climate was balmy, thanks to the greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide levels were 2 times higher than today, keeping the continent ice-free. Plus, land bridges connected Antarctica to South America, Africa, and Australia, creating a giant southern supercontinent called Gondwana. That meant Antarctica wasn't so lonely. Life from elsewhere could visit, and did. But let's start with what didn't. Strapatheres and Litopterns, 2 weird mammal groups, were Gondwana's superstars. They ruled the grassy plains, munching on vegetation. Some were tiny, others behemoths, but all were hoofed mammals, thriving until the end of the Eocene. Next, we have a mystery. The first Antarctic mammals remain undescribed. Their fossils are too scrappy, but they might have been small proto-wombats, ancestors of South America's modern xenothrons. Imagine armadillos and sloths mixed with kangaroos. Weird, right? They probably had a taste for bugs and leaves, perfect for a warmer climate. Then comes a familiar face, or should I say faces. The Meridiolestidans, a little-known group of extinct mammals, were these guys. Skull-pelvic reconstruction reveals their big brains and oversized teeth, perfect for munching on insects. They were tiny, about the size of a squirrel, and may have been the continent's top insect munchers. No wonder they survived the QT extinction. They were already adapted to life after the asteroid strike. Their small bodies needed fewer resources, and they had a head start on going buggy. Most insects went extinct during the QT event, opening up new food sources and few competitors. Plus they had another trick, being marsupials. Okay, you're thinking cute, cuddly marsupials? Think again. Marsupials first evolved in South America around 66 million years ago. Then hopped to Antarctica via the land bridge to Australia. 3 groups made it. First, Didelphomorphia, a mysterious bunch with no living relatives, and Polydolopyrphia, the most diverse, with species filling every ecological niche. Finally, Microbiotheria, which led to today's Monito del Monte. But wait, you thought these guys were Australian? Well, hold on. See, the fossil record tells us the Monito del Monte's ancestors arrived in Antarctica, not Australia. Yet today's populations are found in Argentina and Chile, closer to Australian marsupials than their South American neighbors. So why did they hop across the Tasman Sea? Scientists think Antarctica's rich grasslands, fueled by diverse marsupial mammals, offered a smorgasbord of foods and few predators. It was a buffet. Then came the terror birds. These massive, flightless birds were the continent's top predators. They stomped the grasslands, hunting anything that crossed their path. And I mean anything. Even fellow birds weren't safe. Just ask the ancestors of modern kiwis. The terror birds whacked them around so hard, kiwis evolved to hide underground. But they weren't the only danger. Something far more sinister lurked in the water. Crocodilians. Yep, Antarctica had crocs. But how do we know? For ages, paleontologists suspected they lived there due to the warm climate and land bridges. But proof was elusive until 2020. A fossil of a giant osteoderm, a protective armor plate, was discovered. The thing was massive, suggesting a 23-foot 7-meter monster. 15% bigger than the largest saltwater crocodile ever, 35% larger than the average. These crocs were semi-aquatic, spending time on land and in water, ruling freshwater, maybe even brackish or saltwater environments. They likely ambushed their prey, a favorite technique of today's saltwater crocs. So these Antarctic giants lurked near riverbanks or in the sea, ready to pounce. Nothing was safe when they went for a drink. Mammals, birds, you name it, all fair game for this colossal predator. And they shared the water with smaller crocodilians, possibly specialized fish eaters. With so much life swimming around, you'd think Antarctica's lakes were like a giant aquarium. But hold on, another shocker awaited. Among these monsters and marsupials, penguins thrived. Yes, those flightless, awkward on-land birds that live in the freezing south. Today they were there too, in the Eocene. How could they handle the heat? Oh, they had to trick up their feathers. They preferred colder climates, but not freezing ones. Just a few degrees above freezing was ideal. And guess what? Antarctica's Eocene climate was a few degrees above freezing. Perfect for penguins. But they weren't the only birds around. The skies buzzed with ancient relatives of parrots, woodpeckers, shorebirds, and more. We haven't even scratched the surface of Antarctica's lost world. What other beasts roamed this crazy ecosystem? To find out, stay tuned for more updates. See, this wasn't any old tropical paradise. This was Antarctica, a continent that turned the evolutionary dial to 11, producing monster crocs, saber-toothed squirrels, penguins, and a whole lot of weird in between. Penguins in Antarctica? No-brainer. They kicked off their story 60 million years ago, evolving off the coasts of Australia and New Zealand before waddling to Antarctica. Today, it's a penguin paradise with 2 full-time species. Back in the Paleogene, was penguin heaven sex team? Species thrived, each weirder than the last? And size? And sharks? Antarctica was a sharkpocalypse? Unlike today's shark-sparse scene, the Paleogene was Australia-level wild. Crawling with requiem, goblin, gulper, carpet, kitefin, longnose, school 7-gull, 6-gill, hound, porbeagle, smoothhound, sand, and angel sharks. This lost world was a free-show giant penguins, monster whales, massive turtles, and shark armies in a tropical Antarctica. What else lurked in this insane paradise? Meet the Martian of the La Plata Formation. Yep, that's a real fossil, not a sci-fi prop. Nicknamed Martian due to its reddish color. This oddity is a type of cynodont, a group that includes mammals and their mammal-like relatives. So when did they evolve? During the Triassic, splitting off from the larger family around 230 million years ago. But why is it red? Chinos were basically reptiles with growing pains. They had mammalian traits like giving birth to live young and producing milk, but also reptilian features like claws, teeth, and scaly skin. So how did they rock the Martian look? Some researchers think it was for warmth. Maybe this guy basked like a lizard to boost its body temperature. Others say it's just plain old rust from being buried underground. Now, you might be wondering, why does this critter look like an alien invasion when it was found? Scientists were shocked. It was a whole new type of animal. But these days, it's part of everyday life. We're talking about the Madagascar. Yep, that's right. It's called the Madagascar. And speaking of strange fossils, this one's so unique it's earned the nickname Dracula. Say hello to the first vampire of the fossil record. Nope, it's not related to Bela Lugosi. This creepy critter is a relative of ancient sharks and rays known as a habatus. When paleontologists discovered it, they were stumped. What's with the fang-like teeth? Were they for piercing flesh or sucking blood? Well, it turns out they were neither. See, this hibidont wasn't a shark at all. Despite looking like one, it was more closely related to skate and ray. But why the vampire look? Turns out it was for crushing shells. Ew! It fed on mollusks, clamping down with a force of 2,100 pounds per square inch. That's stronger than a lion's bite. So while it may not have been a bloodsucker, it was a fierce hunter. Back then, between 66 and 34 million years ago during the Cenozoic era, Antarctica was a megafauna paradise. We often imagine dinosaurs when it comes to megafauna, but Antarctica was never home to these giants. Instead, it hosted the most extensive sharknado in history, an insane lineup of these monsters. First up, we got extinct basking sharks, the biggest in the group. They dwarfed today's whale shark by hitting 85 feet 26 meters long. It's like trying to fit a blue whale into a bathtub. They were filter feeders, so harmless unless you counted their size. Imagine a bus-sized shark drifting toward you in the water. Not fun. And that's just a baby compared to its cousin, the mako shark ancestor, Carcericales megalodon. Got you heard right, megalodon. It's not the famous megalodon, more like a supporting role to its famous cousin. But still, hitting 36 feet 11 meters long. It would have been like a Tyrannosaurus rex of the sea, ruling the waves with its razor-sharp teeth. Then brace yourself because things are about to get real freaky. 2 Ototus species, cousins of the megalodon, ruled as apex predators. Ototus suavis and Ototus auriculatus swam in the Antarctic waters. Suavis whites with finer serrations hit 20 feet 6 meters, matching today's biggest great whites. But the madness didn't stop there. The seas around Antarctica were teeming with a veritable zoo of other creatures. At first, the mosasaurs. These marine reptiles slithered through the waters, hunting down unsuspecting prey with their sharp teeth and powerful tails. Their streamlined bodies and paddle-like limbs made them the perfect predators of the open ocean. Next, we have the Macrosauras. These gigantic turtles lounged on the surface, soaking up the sun and munching on jellyfish. Their tough shells protected them from most predators, but not from hungry mosasaurs. Still, they managed to grow to impressive sizes, reaching lengths of over 9 feet 3 meters. Then there were the red whales. These bizarre creatures resembled a mix between a dolphin and a crocodile, with their elongated snouts and paddle-shaped tails. They glided through the water with ease, hunting down fish and squid with their sharp teeth. Finally, we can't forget about the bone-crushing king of the sea, the megalodon. While not exclusively found in Antarctic waters, this massive shark occasionally visited the area, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. Its enormous size and powerful jaws made it the undisputed ruler of the oceans, capable of swallowing entire prey, including whales. Picture a great white, stretch it to the size of a school bus, and you start to get an idea of the monstrosity that was the megalodon. The chaos wasn't just underwater. Birds thrived on land and in the air, and Antarctica played a crucial role in their story. Some paleontologists believe that the first modern bird, Vegavis, evolved right here, named after the Latin word for food. Given that it was found near a fossil mammal site, it lived between 72 and 66 million years ago. It wasn't huge, around the size of a pigeon, but significant for being one of the earliest relatives of modern birds. Despite its small stature, it shared many characteristics with its descendants, including a wishbone and feathers with distinct barbs and hooks. However, it didn't survive the Mesozoic, possibly due to competition from mammals. Its presence hints that Antarctica was a hotspot for bird evolution, offering refuge and unique habitats that allowed new species to thrive. But the Mesozoic wasn't the only period that saw avian activity. During the Paleogene, Antarctica continued to be a haven for birds, providing shelter for diverse species after the asteroid event that wiped out the dinosaurs. The continent's relative isolation allowed these birds to flourish without competition from mainland species, resulting in the remarkable diversity seen today. Some notable inhabitants included falcons, ibises, albatrosses, and petrels. But perhaps the weirdest was Dorygnathus, a pelagornithid with fake teeth. Yeah, you heard that right. This bird had no teeth, yet its skull bore bony jaw projections that looked exactly like a set of chompers. Now that's what we call freaky. The wingspan of 16 to 20 feet, it was massive, rivaling the infamous pteranodon, or even some small planes. But don't worry, this guy was a softie. Its bones were fragile, limiting it to a life close to water, where it snatched fish and squid that came too close to the surface. Basically, it was the ultimate beach bum. In conclusion, Antarctica's past was a wild ride. From ferocious sharks and whale monsters to funky birds and turtle dinosaurs, it had it all. But how did such a harsh environment support such a thriving ecosystem? Well, it all came down to one key factor: warmth. During the Paleogene, Antarctica basked in a balmy climate. It's much like today's Florida, thanks to a phenomenon called the circumpolar current. This ocean current acts like a giant conveyor belt, carrying warm water from the tropics to the west of the continent, and then heading east along the southern coast. As a result, Antarctica remained relatively warm and cozy, creating a perfect environment for all sorts of wacky creatures to flourish. But this paradise couldn't last forever. Around 34 million years ago, everything changed. Antarctica fully split from South America and Australia, forming the Drake and Tasmanian passages. Animals on the newly formed continent were trapped, but that wasn't the biggest problem. They had plenty of room to roam. The real trouble began when the water temperature plummeted, turning Antarctica into a frozen wasteland. For 200 million years, Earth basked in a pleasant climate, often getting uncomfortably hot. But suddenly, just like flipping a switch, it started to chill. The greenhouse era ended, temperatures plummeted, and Antarctica's lush paradise turned into a frozen tundra. If you were a poor penguin or bird stuck there, your fate was sealed. But for everyone else, it was grisly. So what caused this sudden shift? Why did Mother Nature turn up the freeze dryer on Antarctica? Well, it's all because of our favorite celestial bully, the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs.
At that!
Cosmic kerfuffle had repercussions way beyond the death of Dinotopia. You see, the asteroid impact triggered a chain reaction of events that altered Earth's climate in big and small ways. One of these changes was the shutdown of major ocean currents, including the one that kept Antarctica toasty. Without this cozy current, temperatures plummeted and the continent froze over. It was like turning down the heat on a planet-sized radiator. But the cooling effect didn't stop there. The asteroid also kicked up a ton of dust and debris into the atmosphere. This cloud of particles blocked sunlight and plunged Earth into a prolonged period of darkness and cold. Imagine living in a world where the sun takes a permanent vacation. That's what it was like in the aftermath of the asteroid impact. Plants withered, animals froze, and the global climate took a nosedive. All in all, the asteroid messed with Earth's climate in more ways than one. It dealt a double whammy with the shutdown of ocean currents and the dust cloud, sending temperatures plummeting worldwide. And Antarctica got the worst of it, freezing over into the icy desert we know today. In a nutshell, Antarctica's journey from tropical paradise to frozen wasteland was a wild one. From its days as a Sharknado hotspot and bird sanctuary to its current state as an icy desert, this continent has seen better times. But yes, it gave us some truly bizarre creatures along the way. Who knows what other secrets lie hidden beneath its frozen surface? Antarctica's downfall began 34 million years ago. Temperatures plummeted, so much that it kicked off a brutal ice age. What caused such a drastic change? You guessed it, Antarctica's own isolation. As the Drake and Tasmanian passages opened, Antarctica started feeling a little left out. It broke off from the once greater landmass of Gondwana, cutting ties with South America and Australia. With no buddies nearby, Antarctica found itself in a chilly predicament. Warm waters that once cozied up to the coast now had to take a long detour. Instead of feeling the heat from far-off tropical friends, Antarctica got a chilly welcome from the south, forming the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, a frigid moat still circling the continent today. Voila! No more warm waters to keep things toasty. But wait, there's more. This new ocean current also gobbled up carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, slowing down the production of greenhouse gases. So the air grew colder, and Antarctica kept getting chillier. To top it all off, Antarctica took a southward drift. It's always the ones who drift away that end up freezing. As the ice sheets started to form, Antarctica's fate was sealed. This was the beginning of the Eocene-Oligocene Ice Age, which kicked off around 34 million years ago, and guess what? We're still in it. These ice sheets crept across the continent, crushing habitats on a catastrophic scale. Most native life didn't stand a chance against the bitter cold. For those that did, the changes came too fast for adaptation, and well, let's just say most didn't make it to the next evolutionary chapter. But hold on, not all was lost. A few tenacious penguins, birds, and maybe a handful of tough mammals survived, finding temporary salvation in the ice-free pockets. These pockets were like cozy oases for the last survivors, offering a reprieve from the harsh frozen desert outside. But it was a reprieve that would eventually end. Over the next 7 million years, the ice crept across the continent, smothering everything in sight. Talk about a slow-motion disaster? To add insult to injury, those growing ice sheets reflected more and more sunlight, amplifying the chill. Antarctica became a frozen tomb, locked in this icy grip ever since. It's been mostly unchanged for millions of years, but a few clues about its past remain. One of them is the La Plata Formation. It's a bunch of rocks that tell the story of Antarctica's wild ride through time. But what's really buried under all that ice? Digging that up sounds like a frosty nightmare. I'd rather snuggle up with a nice cup of hot cocoa and a good book. While researchers use computer models to paint a picture of what Antarctica was like before it froze, they have managed to spot some intriguing features beneath the ice. Using radar, they found a mysterious trench hiding near the Southern Ocean. It's not your ordinary ditch. Nope. It's a whopping 1,800 meters deep and spans over 1,600 kilometers. The real cliffhanger is how it might be connected to the breakup of the ancient supercontinent, Gondwana. Imagine that. And here's another mind-boggler. Beneath the ice, there are hints of volcanic hotspots that could rewrite what we know about Antarctica's fiery past. Now, while those discoveries are pretty darn cool, let's talk about something that's downright chilling. Climate change is melting the ice sheets faster than ever before. If this trend continues, we could lose up to 90% of Antarctica's ice in the next 2 million years. And let's not forget about the impact on our planet. Sea levels will rise, coastal communities will get drenched, and the delicate balance of our climate will be tipped. So buckle up, because we're in for a wild ride. Global warming is messing with Mother Nature's frozen masterpiece. You know, it's amazing to think that these ice sheets have been around for so long, witnessing the ups and downs of our planet's history. But now it's up to us to protect them. We need to take action on climate change before it's too late. Let's turn this frozen tale into a happy ending. Thanks for joining me on this journey through Antarctica's icy saga. If you liked this episode, don't forget to stay tuned for more updates. And hey, why not share this adventure with your friends? It's time to spread some chilly tales and maybe learn a thing or two along the way. Until next time, keep being curious, stay warm, and remember, even in the coldest of places, there's always a reason to thaw a smile.